Hi. Welcome to Movie Plots. Today we recap the 1983 comedy Trading Places. Spoilers ahead. The movie begins in Philadelphia, with a pair of wealthy commodity brokers called the Duke brothers. Randolph and Mortimer argue over nature versus nurture, Randolph believing that people in their line of work were just raised right, and would resort to crime if born into poverty. Mortimer believes they are from a different class of people, who would thrive even if born in the ghetto. A poor African-American street hustler named Billy Ray Valentine, who pretends to be blind and legless, rolling around the streets of Philly begging for money, and getting chased out of the park by two policemen. Bumps into the Duke's managing director, Louis Winthorpe. Being the racist Winthorpe is, he assumes Valentine is trying to rob him and has him arrested.
Is there a lawyer in the house?
The Dukes see the altercation and decide to use the two men for their experiment, settling on the usual amount for their bet. That night over dinner, Winthorpe regales his fiancée Penelope of his heroic deeds in capturing a criminal.
Kill or be killed.
While his long-serving butler Coleman caters to their every need. The next day the Dukes have their operative Clarence Beeks frame Winthorpe, as he attends a meeting at his gentleman's club. Beeks slips some money into Winthorpe's coat pocket, where he is framed as a thief, fired from his job, and has his bank accounts frozen.
I'm glad your parents are not alive to see this.
When in jail, Beeks frames him some more by having a cop plant drugs on him.
Louis.
Valentine is bailed out of jail by the Dukes, claiming to operate an assistance program for the underprivileged.
All you want.
They give him Winthorpe's position at the company, and give him use of Winthorpe's home and the services of Coleman.
Hey, bubbles, man.
To which Valentine takes full advantage of. When Penelope shows up to bail Winthorpe out, Beeks pays a prostitute named Ophelia to split the two up. Feeling bad, Ophelia gives Winthorpe a lift to his home, where he is denied entry to his Duke-owned building by Coleman, who pretends not to recognize him. Winthorpe is then informed by his bank that his account is frozen.
Wait a minute! What am I supposed to live on?
And is thrown out of the building and onto the street. Ophelia has a kind heart, and gives him a place to stay until he can get back on his feet and pay her back. Ophelia lives in a bad neighborhood, and despite her appearance and job,
Prostitute.
Winthorpe discovers that she is very smart and has a lot of money invested, hoping to one day retire comfortably. Valentine quickly becomes a star employee of the company, since Valentine has the conman mentality that makes them millions. He demonstrates his talent by earning the Dukes a large sum on the stock market on his very first day of work. Also demonstrating trustworthy traits by returning Mortimer's money clip which he leaves as bait.
Nice try, Mortimer.
Penelope and Winthorpe's friends believe the trumped-up charges against him, and refuse to offer him any help. Believing Valentine to be behind everything, Winthorpe turns his attention to revenge.
How much for the gun?
During the Duke's annual Christmas party, Winthorpe, disguised as Santa Claus, sneaks into the party. He plants drugs in his old desk, hoping to frame Valentine.
Drug dealer.
The Dukes witness their scheme complete, as Winthorpe pulls a gun on the group.
Security.
Before fleeing the party.
Merry Christmas.
Valentine takes a joint from the stash and goes to the men's room to smoke it. The Dukes enter unaware of his presence, and discuss the outcome of the wager, with Mortimer giving Randolph the agreed upon $1. Valentine overhears that the Dukes plan to let Winthorpe stay homeless, and even though Randolph was on Valentine's side through the scheme, that he wouldn't let a black person run their company. Valentine chases Winthorpe down, and tracks him back to Ophelia's apartment. Winthorpe is now in the worst place of his life, and attempts to kill himself first with the gun that doesn't work, and then by overdosing on some pills. Valentine, Ophelia and Coleman nurse him back to health, and when he finally comes to, Valentine informs him of the Duke's experiment. As Winthorpe gets ready to go after the brothers, they see on TV that Clarence Beeks is transporting a secret report on orange stocks.
Hold on. Fuck off.
Winthorpe and Valentine recall large payments made to Beeks by the Dukes, and realize that the Dukes have been paying him for inside information. Valentine listens in on Beeks' travel routine, and the four plan to board his train and switch the orange report out. Since it's New Year's Eve, a costume party is being thrown on the train, with Valentine a native African, Coleman an Irish priest,
And a Happy New Year to you too.
Ophelia a Swedish backpacker,
Please to help me with my rucksack.
and Winthorpe a Jamaican.
I certainly hope there's enough space on the train for me.
Valentine swaps the reports, but Beeks spots them and foils their plan.
So the train will be pulling into Philadelphia soon.
He takes them to the cargo to eliminate them, but knocks out a guy in a gorilla costume, causing a real gorilla to knock him out. The group tape his mouth and dress him in a gorilla costume, locking him in the cage with the real one, which the staff don't even realize. The Dukes then receive the reports from who they think is Beeks. Winthrop and Valentine then travel to Wall Street to cause some trouble. Trading commences, and the Dukes witness their money drop drastically, while trying to get to the floor to sell. Winthrop and Valentine are able to turn an enormous profit, selling at its highest point. Valentine and Winthrop tell the Dukes that they also made a $1 wager, whether they could get rich while also making the Dukes poor. Since the Dukes have committed everything to the venture, they incur a loss of $394 million, and their assets are seized and holdings frozen. Mortimer protests as Randolph has a heart attack. Meanwhile, Beeks and the gorilla are loaded onto a cargo ship and sent to Africa.
One gorilla, two gorillas.
While on a tropic island, Valentine, Winthrop, Ophelia, and Coleman enjoy luxury. And the movie ends. Randolph and Mortimer are both seen living on the street in the film Coming to America.
Randolph. Look. Mortimer. We're back.
Trading Places is a 1983 comedy directed by John Landis, starring Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in the leads. When shown on television in 1987, it was the highest-rated theatrical film broadcast by any network. This was Ralph Bellamy's 99th film,
What you might find in a bacon and lettuce and tomato sandwich.
and Don Ameche's 49th.
Get those brokers back in here!
Between the two of them and Eddie Murphy, they had made a total of 150 movies. Jamie Lee Curtis had never been asked to appear naked, but once she went mainstream, she had to take her top off. Eddie Murphy stated in 2001 that making this film was the most fun he'd had on a set, and that every film afterward felt like work. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.
Beef jerky time.